I wanted to talk about, we were talking about childhood traumas. I've experienced childhood trauma as well. I was sexually molested from the ages of 6 to 12 years old. And I realized that, the psychologist, the first thing they ask is, how was your childhood? What are some ways that we can help our children? What practices can we teach them to help them have a better mindset so that way they don't experience trauma so much anymore?
I think there's two parts to your question, so I want to get more clarity. The first part was about you, and I want to acknowledge what you shared about your own childhood trauma, because that's, I think, first and foremost. I'd like to speak to that. And then I would love to share what I think we can do for the children of today.
Absolutely.
Those are two separate topics in my mind. So
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I want to just mention, like, that's very personal. And I feel that now more and more when I meet people, so many people had some kind of deep trauma when they were children. So it was not always molestation, but I mean, for me, it was different types of abuse, right? My mother was into alcohol and drugs, so she would give us alcohol and drugs when we were kids, and little things like that. And also my mother, when we were separated from her, she used to call me because she was getting raped and she was in Cracktown. And you can't underestimate how much even just those words, whatever your mother said to you, whatever people around you when you were in the formative age. And that's, some people say it's till you're 7. I really think it's literally never ending. Like, there's no finishing of the formative years, but there is kind of a window where it's like, birth until, let's say, 14, something around where you are going to move into puberty after that. But those formative years, whatever happens to you in your environment, whatever you're exposed to, you're a sponge to that. And that's what shapes how we see the world. It's how it shapes our worldview. So when, for example, as a child, if you experienced molestation or sexual abuse, emotional abuse, any kind of trauma, some people, to them, trauma was not getting the Barbie they wanted. I mean, there's different levels, right? But like, when I work with people, typically it's the bigger issues, the ones that are like real deep pain. And when you think about it, so what does it do when you look back on your inner child and you connect with that energy that she felt during those years, right? When she was experiencing that. And what I always, the number one thing is this feeling of lack of safety. And in yoga, we have what we call the chakras, right? So the chakras, we have like different energy vortex, like energies around our body. And the first chakra, this is the one that's forming when we were a kid. So this is like the root chakra. This is connected to our feeling of safety, security, our self-identity, even home, family, community, nourishment. And it doesn't surprise me that you told me you've been in 6 car accidents, because I'll tell you, I was in probably, I think, 5. And the last one, I learned why. I had never understood, why am I getting in all these accidents? And people, like you said, they weren't even your fault. Like, you weren't even driving. Like, if you look on a soul level, why is the soul attracting this tragic near death situation, right? So what happened was, my last accident, I was in Bali. This was about 5 years, maybe 6 years ago. I was driving a scooter and I went to pass a truck because the smoke was in my face. I couldn't breathe. So I went to go around it and there was a scooter coming this way. So it hit me head on. And then I got thrown off the scooter, and then another one behind me ran me over. So I got hit by 2 scooters. So I remember I was laying on the ground, and I'm going to tie it back to you in a second so you can understand why we attract these things. What happened was, I'm laying there screaming, crying. The woman who ran over me, she stopped. She got off her scooter. She came over, happened to be a Reiki practitioner. She started doing Reiki on my hand that she ran over. And she said to me something so profound. She said, "You are so lucky. You must be surrounded by angels." And my first thought was, why didn't I die? So you see the contrast between where my mind went and where her mind saw of me. And
Mm,
my situation was the opposite. Mine was what I would call an unconscious death wish. So what I realized, and you know what, I haven't been in any accidents since this happened. And since I
Mm-hmm.
had the light of awareness of why I had attracted 5 near-death car accidents. And it was this one thing. It's called an unconscious death wish. And I truly believe this is in our consciousness. For myself, I'll give it why mine was, could be the same for you, I'm not sure, is from this early child trauma and this feeling of not feeling safe. So having this like deep-seated potential feeling of, I don't really want to be here in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know your spiritual like soul that's infinite and eternal, being like, okay, I don't need to be in this world. I'm already infinite and eternal. What's the point of this world? Because this world is not safe. It's painful here, right? All of these things that are
Yeah.
tied to that inner child trauma that's unresolved. So that was the first true understanding I ever received from why I had attracted all these near-death experiences. But when I had that awareness, it never happened again. So there's a saying, in the light of awareness, everything is healed. And
Mm.
it's so beautiful. Now, there's also sometimes you need to do additional work around it. So after that, I was so, like, I had whiplash, right? So I had to do what I did, like you were saying, you're fasting. I did 24 hours water fast.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to binaural frequency beats the full 24 hours. I laid on a bolster, like a yoga cushion thing, in like to open my spine back up. I
Mm.
did self massage and I did conscious breathing meditation for 24 hours.
Wow.
And it healed me completely. In
Wow.
24 hours, I'm going to tell you, and 3 days later, I went and filmed 50 videos in 3 days for a program that I was creating for an online program. And it was like, it was a huge aha realization that literally all of your pain, all of your suffering, even if you literally just almost died in a car accident, like it can dissolve so rapidly in the light of awareness. Everything is healed. You see? And then all
Wow.
I needed to do was that 24-hour little portal of clearing the trauma. And what happens is if you catch trauma really like early, like within, the first 24 hours, well, it could be even within the first, let's say 3 days or something. If you catch it very early and you do some really targeted practices, you can clear that trauma permanently, completely, and not have any of it set in. But if you don't clear it, it remains in you, in your physical body, in your consciousness, and you carry this feeling of, I'm not safe, this world is not safe, I don't really want to be here. Energetically stays with you if you don't work on it. Like go in and actually clear it, heal it, love it, and let it go. So I hope that answers that first question a little bit.
Wow.